How's it going, everyone? Deathgiver here, bringing you another Pokemon TCG video. Today I'll be going over the 60 cards that make up my Charizard deck. As you guys know, if you've been watching my videos, that I've been playing Charizard pretty much since Charizard came out back in August. So now I'm taking it into the Indianapolis Regionals, so I wanted to go over what I had decided. There's a lot of gameplay that went into the decision of this deck, a lot of testing. I'm gonna go over even all the cards that I at one time had in the deck, why I ran them, why I got rid of them, and why I kept some. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Please think about liking the video and subscribing to the channel. But all right, let's get started with the deck. So like most traditional Charizard decks, I run 2 Pidgeys and then 2 Pidgeots, 3 Charizards, 1 Manaphy, 4 Charmanders, 1 Lumineon, 1 Charmeleon. The Charmanders that I run the Heat Tackle version of Charmander. It only takes 1 energy to be able to get him to be able to attack, so you can get some early damage in with Charmander. Sometimes, like if I'm going a mirror match and they're playing Cleffa, that's an actual knockout, so it's not bad to run the Heat Tackle Charmander. I think that's the best version. I did run the Blazing Destruction one, but without the Path to the Peak no longer being in rotation, it's no longer useful. And then there was another version of Charizard or Charmander that I ran. It wasn't any good, so I decided on Heat Tackle. If I wasn't going to do Heat Tackle, it would have been Blazing Destruction. Charmeleon, I run the Flame Veil version. There is another version with Heat Tackle that does 70 damage, and it would help with taking out Mimikyu, definitely with the Gardevoir decks and the Snorlax decks. But I found if I'm going up against Snorlax, it's GG's. I'm just gonna, if they don't brick, I'm just gonna move on to the next match. There's no point in even torturing myself to go up against that deck. So there's no point in taking Charmeleon and trying to take out Mimikyu. And then with the Gardevoir deck, there's other things that I can boss up to take out that I don't have to really worry about Mimikyu as much. So I decided to run Flame Veil. It protects from damage on the bench, so I think that's a good ability over the Heat Tackle version of it. I run Bidoof and Bibarel. I did that based off of Tord's deck. When I tested out Tord's deck, I did like having the Pidgeot and the Bibarel. I also got Cleffa from Tord's deck as well, which I'm not gonna lie, I think Cleffa is the MVP behind Pidgeot for this deck. Rotom, I've run Rotom for a while. I'm not really sure. I was not sure with Rotom. As I go over the deck more in depth, you'll know why I was kind of leaning toward not running Rotom. But in the end, Rotom was the best choice out of everything else that I could have ran. Trainer cards, I run 1 Professor Tauros. I did at one time run 2, but I decided to go down to 1. Again, I'll go over that later. I run 1 Switch, 3 Boss's Orders, 2 Ionos, 1 Collapsed Stadium, 1 Super Rod, 1 Roxanne, 1 Pal Pad, 2 Nest Balls, 4 Rare Candies, 4 Ultra Balls, 3 Arvens, 1 Vitality Band, 1 Defiance Band, and 4 Buddy Poffins, 1 Prime Catcher, 1 Force Steel, 1 Lost Vacuum, and 1 Eerie. And I run 8 energies, 7 fire, and 1 mist. So I did a breakdown of my deck. I did some notes. I am giving you guys kind of the simplified version of it. So I put it on a spreadsheet. I actually have a more detailed spreadsheet that I went over matches and everything like that. But I don't think you guys want to actually see all that. So I'm not going to go over all that, but I am going to switch over to my spreadsheet, kind of go over the gist of like what I did for the deck. So with the spreadsheet, I had the simplified version of it. I have it with the deck, my cards for the deck. And then I had the staples, which, I feel like every Charizard deck needs to have these cards in it. Not necessarily the numbers, but I feel like these were the cards that you would want to run. So Pidgey, obviously Charizard, Manaphy, Charmander, Lumineon, Charmeleon, Pidgeot, the Bidoof line, and Cleffa and Rotom. As you see, I didn't have, actually I had all my Pokemon were staples, and there was a couple other questionable ones that I'll go over later. And then for the trainer cards, staples were Boss Orders, Iono, the Rare Candies. Obviously, you're going to need the Rare Candies to evolve Pidgeot and Charizard the fastest way possible. Ultra Balls, very important for getting Pidgeot and Charizard. Arvens, and then the Buddy Poffins, and then you needed at least 6 fire energy. Obviously I run more, but you need at least 6 to power up your Charizards. So the important cards, these are not like the staples that you'll need, but they're just as important, almost as important as the staples. Professor Turo, I feel like you need that to kind of try to get rid of the Charizard that has damage on it. Get them healthy, get them back to your hand. So you kind of want to run one. I run Switch because one, it's easier. Sometimes I don't want to switch my opponent. Well, I guess Escape Rope is gone, and I know Prime Catcher is the one where you switch both. So I don't want to run that. Sometimes I just want to switch mine in, and I don't want to worry about my opponents. So, and Boss only switches my opponent. So I decided to run Switch. That way I can switch something out, like a Rotom or a Manaphy, or his Cleffa switches out freely on his own. Pidgeot switches out freely on his own. Bibarel is one that a lot of people will boss up with the 2 retreat costs. They boss that up, and it's hard to get him out because you don't want to be wasting energy on trying to get him out. So Switch is good for that. Collapsed Stadium is good. As in a lot of mirror matches, a lot of Charizard players are going to go after your Rotoms, and they're going to go after your Lumineons. It's good to collapse them away or Professor Tauros them away. So that was the reason why Collapsed Stadium is pretty good. Super Rod to get energy back. If somebody strikes an early knockout on your Pidgey, you can get that back. Bidoof, since I only run one, get him back. So it's a good way to get the certain Pokemon back in certain energy. Roxanne, I think, is important late game when your opponent has 3 prize cards left. You're going to want a Roxanne. You're going to get your 6 cards. They're only going to get 2. That puts them at a disadvantage. So I feel like Roxanne is very important for this deck. Nest Ball, again, to try to get Manaphy, Cleffa if you don't have a Buddy Poffin, or not Manaphy, Rotom. Nest Ball is mostly for Rotom. Cleffa if you don't have a Buddy Poffin ready. Charmander, obviously, if you don't have a Buddy Poffin ready. But Nest Ball is the only way that you can get Rotom without having to discard 2 with the Ultra Ball. So that's why I run a couple Nest Balls. Defiance Band. I run Defiance Band because it gives extra damage when you're behind the prize cards, which throwing Cleffa out early, early knockouts on Pidgey, early knockouts on Bidoof, early knockouts on Charmanders, you're already behind 1 card, so that's an extra 30 damage. So that takes your Charizard from being able to do 210 to 240. So, and that's huge, especially in a lot of matchups like Chi and Pal, early Giratina before it evolves. There's a few others as well that extra 30 damage is huge. So you definitely want to run Defiance Band for that. Forest Sealstone is self-explanatory. You put it on Rotom, you put it on Lumineon, and you can get any card in your deck. That's a strong ability, especially when it comes mid-game, even early game, to get your deck going. It helps get a Pidgey out early, out early, a Charizard out early if you got the Rare Candy already, or it helps you even get a Rare Candy, which most of the time if you're doing that, you're probably going in to get Arven to get the Rare Candy, so you can thin your deck. Lost Vacuum is huge. There was a lot of decks where Lost Vacuum came into play, getting rid of the Defiance Band, getting rid of the Heroes Capes, getting rid of the Max Belts, getting rid of the Mask. I can't remember the Mask, but the Mask that makes it to where like Serena doesn't take damage if they have only 30 HP left. You definitely want to get rid of that. But Lost Vacuum is huge for that. There's not a lot of stadiums at this point with Path to the Peak gone that you're using that for, but you're definitely using it, and it's useful to have at least one. Erie's huge. In mirror matches, which I just played one earlier, I was able to Erie my opponent and took 2 rare candies from their hand. It's huge for that. It's huge for shutting down items, especially with Chi and Pal, because they need those superior energy retrievals. So if you can get a couple of those out of their hand, it's great. So I definitely recommend running at least 1 area in the deck. And then my questionable. So I put in my deck Pal Pad, which obviously it's going to be an Erie target. I did at one time, I did test it and switch from Team Yell's Cheer to Pal Pad. The reason why I switched from Team Yell to Pal Pad is that Team Yell is a supporter card. And most of the time with a supporter card, there's a better option than Team Yell. Arven's better. Certain point in the game, Boss is better. Certain point in the game, Iono is better. I found myself a lot of times wanting to use Team Yell, but finding that there was a different option to use. And then I was talking to Bolt about it, and what it came down to, and I've used this combination quite a few times now, is that with Pal Pad, it's an item card, so you can obviously play it. You can get your Boss back to your deck, or your Iono back to your deck, or your Arven back to your deck, and then you can Pidgeot and search for that card back to your hand, or put it back into your hand. So it makes it to where you're able to play two, whereas if you play Team Yell and put Boss back into your deck, or Arven back into your deck, or Iono back into your deck, even if you search it out, can't use it until next turn. So I felt Pal Pad was better for that. Obviously, it's a target for Erie, but it's not necessarily a huge hit, and I'd rather be able to use the card and be able to use something for it than to have it stuck in my hand, to where there was a lot of matches where it was stuck in my hand for a long time and I never used it and it never came into play. So I definitely think Pal Pad's a little bit better, even though it is an Erie target. So that's one thing about it. I end up doing a Vitality Band over Choice Belt. The reason why I did Vitality Band over Choice Belt has a huge weakness in that it only affects V Pokemon. Most V Pokemon, like, I'll go with the mirror match. With the mirror match for a V Pokemon, Charizard's initial damage is 180. With the Vitality Band, it automatically goes up to 190, so I can automatically one-shot a Rotom. After 3 prize cards, my opponent I am now able to do 270 damage with Charizard, and with the Vitality Band, it puts me up to 280, which knocks out a Pidgeot. It also knocks out a Giratina. So, and then with the Vitality Band, like with Vulpix, before it evolves, at 190, I would be able to knock it out with the Vitality Band too. And with Vitality Band, I can use it against other Pokemon as well. It helps with EXs, it helps with non-EXs, non-Vs, like it helps with everybody. Where Choice Belt was strictly only Vs. And I felt that the extra 20 damage to Vs didn't help when most of the time, if I'm going up against a non-V deck, I'm not going to get any use out of it. Where Vitality Band, I could get use out of it. So it came down to how bad is that 30 damage, because even after one knockout and you get the Vitality or the Choice Belt on them, you can't knock out Pidgeot. And if they got 3 prize cards, well, Vitality Band and Choice Belt both can knock out Pidgeot. So why not use a card that can be used in everything? Again, with Rotom, yeah, you can knock out Rotom on first turn with Choice Belt, but you can also do it with Vitality Band as well. So again, why not use a card that you can use on every Pokemon than a card that you can only use on certain Pokemon? And I know there's going to be people that argue, hey, the Choice Belt is better because it does 3 damage, and they'll come up with whatever V Pokemon that Choice Belt would work compared to Vitality Band. But in my play, it didn't make much of a difference. Vitality Band came in just as clutch as Choice Belt, and actually more so because I could use it in other matches, whereas with the Choice Belt, if there was an EX out there, I'm done. So that's why I ended up going with Vitality Band instead. I went with Prime Catcher. I started out with Max Belt. I loved the 50 damage, but Max Belt had one huge weakness. It was only EX only. So, and there's a lot of times, and a lot of decks run EXs. I mean, Chien Pao runs it, but like Giratina does not run an EX. Lugia, I think, does not run an EX. I can't remember if it does, but I know Lugia's V. I think it only runs Vs. Arceus only runs Vs. Or Arceus only runs Vs. So there's not a lot of EXs out there that I was running into a lot of decks that didn't run EXs. So Max Belt was a lot of times where it was an A spec, and they're such an important card because it's an A spec. It's such an important card. You want to use it. And then there's a lot of times where you threw it on Charizard and you attack with it, and then your opponent lost, vacuumed it away. And yeah, so that one was no good. I argued with Bolt about Hero's Cape. Hero's Cape gives you an extra 100, and I did play a lot of Charizard mirror matches that ran Hero's Cape, but I found with their decks, it wasn't useful. A beefy Charizard becoming a beefier Charizard is still going to get smacked in a couple turns, so it didn't really make much of a difference. And again, lost vacuum, you do the damage to it, even if it lasts with the cape, you do the damage to it, and then you have lost vacuum the cape off, and Charizard's now dead, and then now you're able to boss up something, or they move something else and they active, and you're able to either knock that out or do some damage to it. So Hero's Cape, no good. Max Belt was no good. Prime Catcher, being able to switch my opponent and switch me at the same time, I used it so much that there's not really an argument on not to use Prime Catcher over Max Belt. There's no argument to use Hero's Cape at all. Like, if you're gonna use Hero's Cape, you should use Max Belt. And if you're gonna, and Prime Catcher is just way better than Max Belt. So now we're getting to the tested part. I tested a lot, and obviously, if you've watched a lot of my videos, Entei is one of my favorite Pokemon in the deck. I am thoroughly sad that I had to drop Entei from the deck. I wanted to take him to regional so bad. I even argued with Bolt, or we had a discussion. I didn't argue with him, but we had a discussion about Entei over Rotom, because I wanted Entei to work. And okay, so here's the argument. Entei allows you to put your fire energy on him, and he's another attacker. Early game, he can get you some early knockouts because he can do pretty much up to 220 damage, and that is huge early game. He also gives you the ability, if he's in the active spot, to draw a card, and he's a V, so you're still able to use your Forest Seal Stone if you drop Rotom. So that was the pros to Entei. The cons is mid-game, most of the time you don't need them because you got Charizard. In mid-game and end-game, you most of the time didn't need them. And then if he didn't hit the active spot and you couldn't get him to the active spot, he's dead on your bench. And you don't want something dead on your bench, because eventually you're not going to want him, because he's eventually going to be a knockout for most other decks. So you don't want him dead on your bench. So with that being said, I had to drop him, because with Rotom, I can use the instant charge from the bench or the active if I'm unlucky to get him. And most of the time, you're not going to want to attack with whatever's in that spot anyway. So even though Entei you can attack, you're more than likely going to want to build up your Charizard. And then with the Rotom V, like I said, with the instant charge, you can like draw 3 cards. Both of them are pretty easy, similar in easiness to be knocked out. And it just came down to, it's easier to get something from your deck to your bench than it is to get something from your deck to your bench to your active. And the amount of stuff to get just that one card or to get that early knockout was just not enough. It took too much to get it to work. With Battle VIP Pass going away, you only had the Nest Ball to be able to get them out. And when you went into your deck and every time I did this, when I first started, I actually ran Entei and Rotom. I found myself going in and being like, okay, I can get Entei or I can get Rotom. And 100% of the time it was, I'm getting Rotom and I'm putting him on my bench and then I'm doing instant charge. So, because I didn't have no way of getting Entei from my bench to my active to be able to do anything. So, unfortunately, one of my favorite Pokemon and someone that's been in my deck probably since November of 23, I had to cut him. I'm really heartbroken about it, but I had to cut him. Another card I ran was Daisy's Help. I truly like this card, but this card is truly a luxury. I ran it in quite a few matches. When I needed it, it was great. There was one match where I had 3 Charmanders prized and I hit my prize card. I was able to knock out something with my Charizard and hit my prize card, and I got an Ultra Ball. And I'm like, I got 3 Charizards, and I'm going up against a deck that is literally 1 prize card knockout. And I know I only had 1 more knockout with Charizard, and then they were going to knock out my Charizard the turn after that. So I know I needed with my knockout to get my Charmander, so I could get him to start getting set up for the turn after Charizard gets knocked out. Thankfully, I had daisies in my hand. I was able to see where the 3 Charmanders were, and I was able to get Charmander up another turn, get my other Charmander, and then get to Charizard again, and then Super Rod back a Charmander, or no, get my other Charmander, and then I was Professor Turo's my injured Charmander, and then Charizard up the one that I had on my bench, so I was able to win that one off of that. And that's probably the high point of Daisy's help. Outside of that, there was a lot of matches where I was looking at Daisy's help starting on my hand, and by the end of the game, Daisy's help was still in my hand. I Iono'd it back, or I just never used it. And that was the gist of that card. It was just such a luxury. Like, it's great to be able to know what your prize cards are and to know where it is in your prize card, so you know exactly what to go after. There's a lot of matches where I never used it, and if I had the chance to use it, there was just a better supporter card to use. So I end up dropping that one after about 10 or 15 matches. It didn't last long, but it was a fun card to use, but I would not recommend it because it's just a luxury card. It's really just a luxury card. Same with Norman. I loved Norman's ability where you draw 2, and then if it's an EX on the field, you draw another 2. It's great against Charizard mirror matches. It's great against Chi and Pal, and that's it. Those are the only 2 that run a lot of EXs. Outside of that, you are looking at a card that you're just drawing 2, and to be honest with you, just drawing 2 is not a good card. So the draw 4 I found was helpful. The draw 2 I found was just not useful. And there was too many matches where I was drawing 2 and that was it. And those 2 cards were pretty much trash. So I dropped Norman faster because I added Norman and Daisy at the same time. I dropped Norman pretty fast, but I kept Daisy for a while. Jirachi, I tried to make it work. It came down to either Manaphy or Jirachi. Manaphy helps you against Radiant Greninja. Jirachi helps you against Sableye, and there's someone in Guardy's deck that does damage to the bench. That I think it's Screamtail. Screamtail. It helps against Screamtail. It helps against Screamtail and Sableye. But I found Manaphy helping against Radiant Greninja was a lot more helpful than Jirachi versus Sableye and Screamtail. So, and I couldn't run them together. I know a lot of decks out there run them both together. I can't run them together. The deck, there's too many times with the 2 of them together that the deck breaks, where I will start out with literally a Manaphy in the active and a Jirachi on the bench, and that's it. And those games are just so bad. And I hated it because it takes up so much space, or I don't even put Jirachi on the bench until it looks like my Manaphy is going to get knocked out, but it still is putting a Pokemon that in most matches you don't need. So, and it gives you them 2 free prize cards. If they knock out Manaphy and then knock out Jirachi, and you're now getting set up to go, then, I mean, there are 2 prize cards in, and you just wasted it on 2 Pokemon that wasn't needed at that point in time. So I decided between Manaphy and Jirachi. I went with Manaphy. I think Manaphy is better than Jirachi. But there is an argument for Jirachi, and if I had more confidence in my deck, not for them 2 to show up, and they showed up a lot, I would run them both, because to be able to have something to counteract Radiant Greninja and to be able to have something that counteracts Sableye and Screamtail are huge, but most of the time they didn't show up when I needed them, and they were bricks when I didn't need them. So I had to get rid of one. I had to get rid of one. Radiant Charizard. I can never get this Pokemon to work. I see the pros to it. It's a great Pokemon late game. Great Pokemon late game. It's a 1 prizer that can do 250 damage late game. After your opponent has pretty much decimated you and gotten you down to prize cards in this late game, and they got 1 prize card left or 2 prize cards left, and you got 2 prize cards left. It's great for that situation. You throw him out there, he's a 1 prizer, they can only knock him out and they get 1 prize, and they still got to get 1 more prize, and he's going out there and he's doing some damage. The problem is that late game is late game, and most of the time with late game, you've either already lost or you've already won, because Charizard is wiping the floor with everything. He's doing 300, 330 damage, so he's wiping the floor against any and everything, which is more than the 250. And I could never get him to fit in. And I know it might be more of like my skill level compared to the Pokemon itself, but I didn't see a point to it. In all the mirror matches that I saw, that they dropped him early on the bench, which I think is a bad idea. Or even my training partner Bolt, where he would drop him late in game, he never used him. There was never a point to where I saw Radiant Charizard hit the bench and I'm like, I'm scared of that 250 damage. If he threw Defiance Band on it, I was worried about it against Pidgeot. But if I had less prize cards than him, but if I had more prize cards than him, I wasn't worried about it at all. And it's easy to boss him up and knock him out before he becomes a threat, because obviously you're going to be able to do it. So I never got a chance to really use him. I didn't see a point to using Radiant Charizard. It was just one of those that he takes up a spot and he's another one that could hit your hand. So then you would have Manaphy, Jirachi, and Radiant Charizard in your hand, and you're like, what am I gonna do with this? Like, I got 2 dead cards in my hand and I gotta have 1 dead card in the active spot. And because I run more energies, there's a lot of chances where I had energy in my hand. So you're looking at Manaphy or Jirachi or Radiant Charizard in my hand, so 2 out of the 3. And then I had an energy, and then I run 3 bosses, so then I'd have a boss, and then I might have a buddy, but I might not. And then I'd have Professor Turo's, even though I only ran 1. And then I'd have Switch, and I only ran 1. So I'm looking at my hand, and I'm like, what am I gonna do with this? So I dropped those 2 just because of the bricks that situation led to. It made the deck flow better. I know a lot of people, I know my friend is like, drop a boss. I found that late game, I want the 3 bosses because that's going to be my prize map. I'm going to build everything up, and then I'm bossing up something that Charizard can knock out. And then next turn, I'm Pidgeot, quick searching, bossing up the next thing I can knock out. And then following turn, I'm quick searching again and bossing up the next thing that I can knock out. And so I got 3 bosses, 3 knockouts, game over, GG's, I'm moving on to the next one. So that's why I run 3 bosses, because if 1's prize, 2's prize, I still got 1. If 1's prize, I still got 2. And then I can use Pal Pad to get the other one, or hopefully I get it in my prize card. So that's why I run 3 bosses. And then the energy, everyone's been telling me to drop an energy, and I tried running 6 energy and 7 with the miss. But I find that too many times early game, I want to switch out. I will get a Pidgey, or I will get a Bidoof, and I want to switch them out, or even a Rotom, and I want to switch them out. So I use that extra energy to drop them, and I still got 6 energy left to be able to use for my Charizard. Where when I ran 6 energy and I was forced to retreat something, now I got 5 energy in my deck, and then I never see my Super Rod, or my Super Rod is prized, or something happens to where I need that energy right then and there, and it's in my discard pile, and I only got the 5. So that's the reason why I run a little bit more energy than like the normal Charizard decks. But that's pretty much it for my deck. It's done really well. When it bricks, it bricks. But I think that's any deck that you play in Pokemon. There's going to be always a possibility with so many cards that you're going to get combinations that just don't work. But for the most part, the deck runs well. Like I said, Cleffa, MVP. I did find out with Cleffa, a lot of people go after Pidgey. A lot of people go after Bidoof. A lot of people don't go after Cleffa. And Cleffa's in the active spot, drawing my hand back up to 7, which when you keep getting your hand down to 2 and drawing back up to 7, getting your hand down to 2, you eventually hit a lot of combination of cards that let you pull off some insane combos, and then you're now wiping your opponent in 3-4 turns. So Cleffa's been the MVP on that. But outside of that, the deck has flowed really well. Being able to go in and get everything with Pidgeot, which has always been the reason why I've always run Pidgeot. Bibarel, I used to run either. I always used to think it was Pidgeot or Bibarel, but now I know that both of them are good. Being able to replenish your hand late game with Bibarel, because all the Roxannes that are walking around, all the judges that are walking around, they tend to empty your hand. So that's why I run the Bibarel. And then, like I said, Cleffa's great early game, and that free retreat is so fantastic. To a point to where you can replenish your hand until you're ready to go, and then you can free retreat his butt out and throw Charizard in and destroy everything that's in your place. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, think about subscribing to the channel, and I will see you next time. Next time I will be showing you gameplay of the deck so you guys can see what it can do. And then I also plan on releasing a video later with telling you how I did with the deck and what I will learn from it and what I'll do better next time. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.